Hey everybody, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. This is episode 181. Uh, this episode we have Dre Taylor from Nile Valley Aquaponics. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Long time.
And then we also have myself, your host Steve from Ponics. So thanks a lot for joining us. Tell us a bit about what you do and what your background is there. I understand you're over in Missouri and you've been doing the aquaponic, veggie thing for quite a long time, and now you're kind of looking to try and move into the hemp space as well. And you've been putting a lot of hard work into that. So thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me. So I've probably been doing aquaponics about 10 years now. My uncle, he was doing some hydroponics back in the day. And I met Will Allen. He came to Kansas City. I'm out of Kansas City, Missouri. Will came to Kansas City, Missouri, did a workshop back in about 2010 or so. And went to that workshop, me, my uncle, my grandfather, and ever since then, we've been doing aquaponics. We all went home, built our own little individual aquaponic system, a two-tier system that he teaches. And so kind of been like a disciple of Will's and kind of been my mentor up there in Milwaukee. And so I have a mentoring program called Males to Men. And so I have probably about total currently about 50 young men that I mentor in Kansas City every Monday. So I want to teach them about entrepreneurship, giving back to the community, growing food. And I said, what better way than aquaponics? And so 2014, me and my boys, we built a small aquaponics system out of the school that I used to attend, the elementary school. It was in the basement. We had like a 100-gallon fish tank. We had a 4-foot by 8-foot grow table. And we would bring people down to this basement, and they was amused about how these plants fuel the vegetables. And so that's how we start receiving funds because we're a nonprofit. And that's when we went ahead and we took over 5 vacant lots in Kansas City, trouble lots, right in the middle of the inner city. We took down some trees. We repurposed some of those trees that we cut down. So we got some walnut slabs, some oak slabs, and we repurposed those for like benches. I have a walnut slab as a table in my office. And we built a greenhouse, 30 feet by 150 feet, so 4,500 square foot greenhouse. We dug the fish tanks. We have two 20,000 gallon fish tanks, 6 feet deep, 4 foot wide, 120 feet long. And we have one that's half that size, 6 feet deep, 4 foot wide, 50 feet long. And so we grew tilapia inside of the tanks, and it's a multi-tier system. I think we have 4 tiers on 2 of our tanks. The tanks are ground level, and above one of the tanks, I bred black soldier fly larvae to feed to the fish. So I actually got a patent for the black soldier fly larvae to control them when they come out of the system and they stay inside of the system, so they can do self-harvesting. Uh, and we do floating rafts above the gravel beds. So we have 2 uh, floating raft beds above our gravel bed, and then underneath one of our systems, we have that black soldier fly larva inside of the system in our aquaponics in our greenhouse. We also have 2 small hot tunnels that we just do some regular gardening in. I have like 10 goats on the property. And I also have a fruit orchard, Kansas City Urban fruit orchard, Forum Co-op. And so it's like almost 200 fruit trees and almost 100 beehives. And so just really trying to create, put a dent in the natural food system here in Kansas City, Missouri.
So what are some of the challenges you found trying to get started there in the beginning doing aquaponics?
Challenges, when you go from 100-gallon tank to now 50,000 gallons of water, there's some challenges. And so you scaling up is always, different than doing a small system. The the problems in a larger system is gradual, as compared to a smaller system where things happen like right overnight. And so it gives you time to identify certain things. You learn your system. Not all systems are the same. No matter how many times I went to Milwaukee and seen it set up, everybody's system's not the same. And so you have to learn and identify your system to get it, working and clicking on all cylinders. So it was just a learning lesson and getting everything up and going. I had a spoiled partnership in the beginning that we got out of, and so it took us a little while to get up and going and move from that partnership that we had. But it's been a great learning experience. We have thousands of people that come by the facility a year to visit, tour. We have kids that's learning. And so we probably had about close to maybe 50 different countries represented on our site, so far since our inception. So it's been a great experience. The neighbors like it. We got a lot of great coverage, and we're looking to build on what we started at. And so we have plans, hopefully, next year to tear down the greenhouse and build some more commercial greenhouses and create like the first urban ag franchisable model that can be duplicated in other cities and other places. So that's our goal for 2020. We're working with HOK architectural firm to build out the renderings that they made. It's an award-winning design that they won, that they came up with, and so hopefully we can get that built out in 2020. So that's currently what I've been working on, aside with trying to get some cannabis license and hemp. Now this past to Missouri.
Yeah. So, how's that been going there in Missouri with their laws? Because they've been, really working at trying to get stuff passed. I know there's ups and downs with it, like every other industry.
Yeah, as far as the cannabis, I mean, it was 2,100 applications in Missouri that filed, and there's going to be a 360 they're going to actually take, and so we got a 1 in 7 chance on getting the application in, and so we apply for 1 cultivation, 2 manufacturing, 2 dispensary license, and so we'll know something as far as the cultivation and manufacturing this month, and then I think January we'll know about the dispensary. And so yeah, it's been a long haul, a long challenge. It's pretty uh it was a lot of work to put in for those cannabis licenses, very competitive. And what they was asking for those license process, non-refundable fees, 10,000 for cultivation, 6,000 for dispensary manufacturing, and just some of the questions they was asking. You have to have like a physician, a chemist, and things like that on board. Industry experience, which was hard to have in Missouri. If legal experience as you can put on a application. So it was a lot of hoops that they made you jump to. So hopefully, we think we put in a good application. So we hopefully get 1 out of 5 applications we apply for.
So, what other crops have you guys had a lot of success with your aquaponics? I know you've grown quite a few. I've seen some really cool pictures of your facility there.
Yeah, pretty much. Lot of lettuce, butterhead lettuce, red lettuce, a lot of lettuce during the colder months. The winter months, a lot of basil that we grew. Different herbs, like I said, in the cold we'll do a lot of cilantro. We'll do wheatgrass, garlic chives. We've grown a variety of different things inside of the greenhouse. Just testing the waters and seeing, what the neighbors like, and selling to different restaurants, things of that nature.
So, have you had anything that you grew in your aquaponics and maybe you just decided that wasn't the best thing to grow, either for sales or other reasons?
Uh, well, uh, I'm right in the inner city, so most people around the neighborhood they just want greens, collard greens. So I can't get enough collard greens. You know what I mean? So uh, I can grow collard greens year round, and they buy them all up. And so I think that's what I probably just need to stick to is just growing collard greens and mustard greens and things of that nature. Because that's all they really want to eat. They can care less about the lettuce and some other things. But I try to grow a variety of different stuff, a lot of different herbs for different people. And so it just depends on the time of the season of what we're growing and we wasn't really focused, even though I built it on production, it kind of turned more into educational tours and one of those neat things to see where you pull up a big bag of fish out of the water and the kids are smiling. And so, just to have that impact where we walk inside of Nile Valley on 20th and Wabash, which is like, right in the middle of the city, we're right next to houses and right next to the main street in Kansas City. Uh, where you walk in inside, you kind of forget where you're at until you hear them sirens going by. But other than that, I mean, it's just one of those places where you actually come in and being at eye and learning, seeing something new for the first time that you didn't even know existed. So we kind of got to doing a lot more educational and tours and just a tourist destination for people to come in town to see what we're doing over in 29th and Wabash and Nile Valley.
So, is there anything maybe you've developed with your aquaponic methods that maybe are a little less traditional, or something that's a little more unique, or something that you think maybe you do differently than other people?
Yeah, with aquaponics is funny because you look at different systems and you see people build them and you figure, once you get in it, you're like, how do you be sustainable with aquaponics when you start looking at the numbers and crunching them and seeing, okay, how much can I produce? How much energy am I using? Am I being efficient? And so you really start drilling down, you see like what is the profitability of aquaponics and how can you produce, products out of it. And so what I've come to realize is, just raising fish and vegetables just isn't enough, to be sustainable in aquaponics and actually make a living. And so, that's when we had tours with kids that come in to, charge for that to increase the revenue and also developing products. And so hopefully next year when we build our system out, we want to develop our own line of nitrogen rich water, that we can sell to people who want to use that water from the aquaponic system, as well as using the fish as a hydrosite, developing a hydrosite that we can use, to sell, at $30 to $40 a gallon. And so if you produce so much fish and then you can add that hydrosite, to the nitrogen rich water, you can actually develop a couple lines of products that you can actually sell. And I mean, the water is actually worth more than a fish when you look at it. And it's crazy that you can think that I can take a gallon of water out of my fish tank and sell it for $5, and I got 50,000 gallons. So trying to get into more of the commercialized and production method of things that it's not traditional in aquaponic systems that people need to look more into as far as how can it be more profitable in aquaponic system.
That's awesome. So you said you did tilapia mostly so far?
Yeah, haven't done any other fish but tilapia.
Nice. And what how's your experiences been with those? They're a lot of fun, especially
Yeah,
for teaching.
yeah, tilapia is pretty easy going. I think it's probably one of the easiest fish you could possibly do, besides goldfish. And so, we did have, like I had at one point in time like 30,000 fish and like 50,000 gallons of water. And so we did have a lot of fish. And so when you learn your system, you have some fish kills. So you live and you learn what works and what don't works, and overstocking your tanks and things of that nature. So tilapia is pretty easy going. So I mean, it's one of those things where you just have to learn your system and learn the fish, and you have to observe your fish, in the feed. And once you feed them and you seeing how to hit that water, they're not hitting the water, you learn a lot about, the quality of the water. So you don't have to do as much test as you would do in the beginning as you would do once you start learning your system and start observing those fish, as I've learned over the couple of years that I've been doing it.
Nice. Is there any crops you haven't grown yet that you're really looking forward to growing in the next year or two? Or in the future that you haven't had a chance to grow?
Uh, yeah, actually, haven't done cannabis and aquaponics. I visited the site that you've been to. I think up here in Canada. Can't think of the damn name of it now. But in Hamilton, Canada. So I got to observe what they were doing there. They had that Nelson and Page system, but just trying to see the benefits of growing it in aquaponics, and even hemp in aquaponics. So trying to figure out exactly how I can grow it naturally using hydrocyte, using the nitrogen, all those different things, compost teas to growing it naturally as opposed to using those synthetic fertilizers that people are using. So just looking at, real interested in getting into that portion of it, being more sustainable and, growing something that people is gonna, be using. If it's gonna be medical, I don't understand how something is medical and you're using these synthetic chemicals that you can't drink and you're putting in the soil. So just looking at trying to grow something that's natural and healthy and something that, you can stand behind at the end of the day.
Awesome. Um, so a lot of people out there would love to start doing, more youth outreach type programs with their aquaponics programs. What's some advice you have for people that are looking to kind of replicate what you do in your area? Looking to get started, and maybe some advice, that maybe would have helped you when you were getting going.
Uh, Advice, uh, sometimes they say start small when you learn the system or learn the basics first. I had a good chance to figure things out before I got the kid. Well, we also at the same time, me and the kid. Um, but you know, they're just interested in seeing the fish. I mean, just learning the biology and chemistry behind everything, and just introducing them to something different, man. Just exposing them. Kids are impressionable. So anytime you can introduce a kid to something new, exciting, instead of saying turn to page 2 to learn about nitrites, ammonia, dissolved oxygen, pH, temperature, and all these different things, they're more excited to actually get their hands down in there and actually learn these things and see it in action. See the nitrification process when you have your K1 media filter and you're blowing it up and it's all, doing the things it's doing to the bacteria and removing ammonia from your system. And so when they can see those things and see how it acts and how it benefits and how it works in nature, it's interesting to them. It leads them to a path where hopefully they can see some interest in agriculture where it's not traditional, where there's different things you can do in agriculture that can take you down different paths in life. And so that's all we try to do. We try to expose as many kids to as much as possible in hopes that they find something that sticks and they can continue on, in that journey of life because of something that we probably, bridged them to, being stuck on an island and not seeing, what was all out there because they just been stuck. So we just try to provide a bridge for the youth to get from one point to the next point, and that's all we try to do.
That's awesome. So is there any things maybe that were a unique challenge to maybe growing in more of an urban environment compared to other places?
uh, yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm right in the middle of the hood, and so all the stuff that comes along with being in the middle of the hood, where you hear gunshots and uh, you know police sirens. I mean, that becomes normal when we go around. It's normalized, and so you just hope that when you're doing a bus tour of people coming by, that you don't have nothing to go off or something happen at that point in time. But other than that, man, the neighbors have been great. I haven't had any complaints. I got goats, and so for a lot of people, seeing goats isn't a big thing. But when you got it right there in the middle of the hood, they drive by and they're like, "I know I didn't see a goat," so they'll stop traffic or almost cause a traffic jam to pet the goats, and kids come up and be able to pet it. So just something different, man. And so, it's unique. It's something that a lot of neighborhoods need. I'm trying to hopefully get it built where we can build out other facilities in other places that have the same kind of impact we have in Kansas City.
And what's some of the fun things that you've done with the kids and youth outreach? I know you. What are some of the different things that you do there with the kiddos?
With the kids,
Yeah, 'cause I see that you do a lot of work with that.
yeah, I mean, we do all kind of things. We've been hunting. We shot pheasant and taught them how to clean the pheasants. We've been in private planes and flew over Kansas City in private plane over like the stadiums and downtown and things of that nature. We send kids to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, actually learn how to fly planes. We reward them $100 for a 3.0 grade point average in the core subjects. We go up to the school if there's any problems that they have, and so we can represent them in the school system. Uh, we do a lot of they work. They've been working at the city market here. We have a big city market, and they're able to earn tips where for a 7, 8, 9 year old to get $100 in a day is pretty big. You have a big wad of money, so they take enjoyment out of that. We didn't do it last year. We do it we done it the last 3 years, and so we do a lot of different things with the youth. Teach them a lot. Teach them about manhood, what it means to be a man, be accountable, being responsible, and so that's the time that we have with them. And so we try to help them navigate society and just teach them as much as we can while we have.
That's awesome. Is there anything that maybe the kids have figured out or discovered working with you on the farm that maybe something you hadn't quite thought of?
Uh, they, we you learn a lot. You know what I mean about them. And so when like I said, we got goats, and so when it came time that they said if you're gonna eat meat, you need to learn how to cook and clean it, these things. And so I didn't think they're gonna be tolerant of us killing the goat. But they was pretty excited about it. I guess boys are just, are just like that. And so we have some neighbors who sacrifice or have a halal goat, like every I think during Ramadan or something like that. And so they showed the boys how to do it, and they was tuned in, and they was part of the process. They jumped right in there to help skin it and gut it and things like that. And so, we got a kick out of it. Everybody enjoyed themselves. And so just trying to teach them survival skills. If something happens and we go off the grid, these are things you need to do because people don't uh, foresee, the trouble we coming into in the future as far as global warming and the food production that need to be localized. And so this is an aquaponics plays a big part in that, coming up in the future because we're not gonna get any new water, and we're gonna have to just start, learning how to feed ourselves, because California can't keep on producing what they're producing in California, and that's gonna be one of the biggest issues that people are gonna realize. They haven't realized it now, and so it's gonna come a time where people are gonna be looking at, us as hopefully people to, help feed communities that we're in.
Absolutely, yeah, because it provides a great way, especially to pop into any parking lot or any kind of paved area. You can put an aquaponic system and start ripping. Even if you don't have the underground area access.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it can be done on, so many different levels. I mean, it don't always have to be aquaponics. It can be the cracky method where, just have floating rafts or, things of that nature. You're making your compost teas to produce, certain leafy greens and vegetables. And so there's ways around where it can be done inexpensive without, having to worry about the fish production, which is the biggest part that, a lot of people just don't understand.
So, what are any tips or tricks for people on the fish production side? Since you said that's a little bit tricky.
Uh, Tricks, tricks. I guess. Just maintain the right water quality, making sure your feed to fish ratio and filtration is in place. You know, the temperature, and so like I said, trying to heat up. Because we dug 6 feet down on the ground, and so first off, it was hard because the way Will had it set, he had PEX piping, water running through PEX behind the liners, and that's how we set it up. We seen this system and we set it up like that, but that wasn't efficient enough. It wasn't heating the water, and so our fish didn't grow like they should have because we should have just been heating the water directly instead of just putting it in a PEX pipe behind the liner. And so that's what we pretty much learned is just heating the water.
Right. Oh yeah. The definitely. And I was just talking to somebody today about that. You can set up the tankless water heaters like you would for underfloor heating, and set them up into different zones and do a zone for your different areas. So it's always interesting to set those up, and not very difficult either. Just a tankless water heater, an expansion tank, and then whatever else you're using to connect to that for heat exchanger. Usually PEX line usually works really well.
Yeah, we had those big what was it, Aqua Cow uh heat exchangers. And so it's like we had to heat 50,000 gallons of water. And so they work pretty good, the Aqua Cows. And so we looked at the tankless heaters, but I mean, I don't think you can do a tankless heater for the size tanks that we have. But there's different methods of heating it. I mean, we wanted to do rocket stove to try to heat the water, but that wasn't efficient enough to do that route. So we just had to go with the Aqua Cow heating units. That way, if we wanted to move and go to like a different fish, so like a trout, we can cool the water as opposed to heating the water. And so that Aqua Cow heaters allow us to switch it to either cool it or heat the water. And so that's something I'm interested in getting into is growing trout, in the near future.
That's really cool. So, any other? So you're planning on trying to get into the hemp stuff next year. Any particular cultivars you have in mind for that you're planning on growing?
Yeah, I mean, right now, look like CBG is the only thing you can pretty much grow. I've been looking around and searching, and to be on the safe side, like Missouri hasn't yet said exactly if they're going to go by the USDA rules or stand by, their own state plan. And so right now, CBG looks like it's the front runner to grow. It's safer and it's more profitability growing CBG anyway. So I don't know why you would grow anything else. And trying to grow it in a greenhouse and start off being USDA certified off the jump, you know, in a greenhouse. And so that's what we're looking to do. Hopefully, this grow season. Hopefully, we'll have get some seeds. Hopefully, in the next by the end of this month, and start those up and get those mothers going and get those clones ready for the growing season. And so, yeah, the USDA really messed a lot of stuff up for a lot of people. But I guess the market's gonna equal out because there's a lot of people I've seen, about 20 or 30 different, hemp groups, and it just seemed like it was like a gold rush, and people didn't have no kind of plan in place to just put seeds in the ground or bought some stuff and had no idea who's gonna harvest it, who's gonna buy it. I mean, it was just, I think people still sitting on stuff. It's people that didn't even harvest their crops, and so uh it's one of those things where you live and you learn. It's business like anything else at the end of the day. And hopefully that, this kind of people learn with this USDA thing that, need to take a little bit more seriously and plan ahead.
Awesome. So now, do you do any probiotics with your system? Any microbial dosing or anything like that? I mean, you talk about compost teas and stuff like that. Tell us more about what you do with that stuff.
In aquaponic system.
Yeah, or yeah, that and or with your soil stuff as well.
Yeah, I don't do too much. I don't really do too much with soil. Most of my stuff is aquaponics. I don't haven't let me see, have I I've done dual root zones with my fruit trees, my banana trees and things like that. Uh, we basically just brew our own compost tea that we use, add molasses to it. And we also do a foliage spray using our compost tea. And we was also doing some testing on the leachate for my black soldier fly larvae. And so we were producing enough leachate for my larva to actually spray on some of our plants and see how it reacted. And we wanted to get that tested. So we didn't get a chance to get it tested. So we'll test that next year and also try to use that, for a natural insect repellent. because we produced so much of it, and as much stuff that we had that we was feeding them, our black certified larvae in our system. It was a 4 foot by 120 feet long tray of just black certified larvae, and we were feeding them coffee spent grains from a brewery, and we were also feeding them. What else were we feeding them? Spent grain and some food waste, and we might throw a dead fish in there every now and again. But they produced a lot of that leachate, and with all the stuff in there that we were producing as far as the larvae, we didn't have any insects, right around that area, because of that leachate. And so that leachate, we would take that leachate and spray our plants with it, and we didn't have much of a insect problem with our plants because of the leachate. And so looking at those things, testing them out, there's not a lot of research done on it. And so those are some things we'll look to, like value added products that we can produce and commercialize in the system, and looking at different ways that, other people can look at and say, okay, we can do this process, we can do that. It's just not just about selling fish and vegetables and other things you can produce to be sustainable in an aquaponic system.
That's really amazing. I've never heard about using any kind of insect leachate. I've heard of using insect frass or even growing, chitin eating microbes on insect frass or things like that. But I've never heard anyone using the black soldier fly leachate and using that as an insect repellent. That's very, very interesting, and definitely something I hadn't heard before. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, I actually went to China, Guangzhou, China, to see how they was doing on a commercial level. They was doing close to 20 tons of this black certified larva a day out there. It was set up. Went to this warehouse. They had a warehouse of like bowling alley lanes. There was like 100,000 hogs on this farm, and they had to figure out what to do with this waste. Usually it takes hogs about the waste about 6 months to compost down. These insects are able to compost it down in like 3 weeks time. And so they would take the eggs in these bowls, and they would make a slurry out of this waste, the feces. And they would put these couple of insects, the black certified larvae, like every 10 feet, like a cup, in like 3 weeks time period. They would eat it and compost it down, break it down, and they would have compost that we use for different forms and sell that compost. And then take the insects, the maggots, and feed it to the fish or chickens or whoever else they plan on selling it to. So I got to learn a lot about the black soldier fly larva out there in Guangzhou, China. And so, I think, per square foot, I don't think nothing else produce more than a black soldier fly larva. You can find a market for it as far as the sustainability, what it does to, in nature. I think that's one of the most powerful insects or things, period, that we have out here that just is flying under the radar for a lot of people.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm a big fan of them and roaches. Dubia roaches, hissing roaches. Those are my other ones aside from the black soldier flies. I think, especially because their fat and protein per gram rates are much higher than a lot of other energy sources that you can raise, especially for chicken feeding. A lot of people raise trophy chickens or even large scale chicken operations that are more organic.
Yeah, yeah, when you grew up in the city, man, you see roaches growing up, so you don't know. You don't look at them as that kind of a source, but yeah, I mean, all those different insects, man, just trying to look at and try to emulate nature as much as possible in your system, as opposed to using all the synthetic stuff, man. So I just try to get into more of the natural things as opposed to all the synthetic stuff that you see out there. So I'm just, trying things out and seeing what works, what don't work, and trying to push it forward.
Awesome. So, frog in my throat there. So, tell us more about black soldier fly stuff. Is there any other tips or tricks or cool things you learned over there? It sounds like a really neat trip.
Yeah, the soldier flies. I mean, at one point in time, we had, probably 4 to 5 million of them possibly, at one point in time. and they breed pretty fast. They have the 5 to 900 babies every time they breed. Each gram is probably close to 30,000 black soldier fly larvae. I think the most grams I probably produced in a day was close to, I think, 15 grams, I believe, which isn't a lot because I think in China they was doing like, I think, 10,000 grams, I believe, a day there. And so I built a room in back of my greenhouse, a 10 foot by 10 foot room, and that's where I was breeding them out of. And I mean, it was really my aquaponics is really two people show or two or three people show. And so for 4,500 square foot greenhouse and some small hot tunnels and doing all the stuff we were doing, we were pretty much undermanned. So I want to get to finding funds to really step up that black certified larva production inside of the greenhouse. I mean, that room that we have, that 10 by 12 foot room, you should be able to do at least 100 grams of insects, of black certified larva a day out of that room, at full capacity, in the spring and summertime and maybe early fall. I mean, even in the wintertime, if you have the right temperature and you have the right light setting, which don't require much inside of there, when you look at the profitability of it, if you have a market, those larvae per gram, you can sell it for about $20 a gram. If you can do, 100 grams at $20 a gram, if you can do $5 a gram, you're doing 100, grams. You know what I mean? That money adds up at the end of the day, and that's not a lot of input in a black certified larva besides feeding them waste. I mean, waste is free, and so it's one of those things where I want to get more into the commercialization of black certified larvae. So hopefully, when I get this hemp thing going and cannabis with the license, I will focus a lot of my attention to the black certified larva because I think it's more money in black certified larva than I think anything else than cannabis and hemp. At the end of the day,
And they don't, one nice thing about them is they don't smell much. They don't have much of a scent at all. Doesn't stink like a lot of other ones. A lot of other types of composting things can get pretty stinky.
yeah, you get it's sort of like kind of almost like a sweet smell almost. It's not a bad smell. It don't matter how much bad food that you throw in there with a black certified larva is. They get to it and they devour it before it gets the chance to start smelling. And so that's one thing where they can eat close to 2 pounds per square foot of waste, And so you're talking about waste removal. These are some of the best waste removal. So we can actually move like 600 pounds of waste in our system a day if we want to put in there. But that's a lot of taking stuff in and taking it out of that nature. So we would always throw stuff in there and then just take this the frass and just add it to the outside garden, our free community garden outside. So yeah, it was a lot of work, but black certified larva, I think, is really the future, and that's what I'm looking towards to get more involved in. After this cannabis and hemp thing, is getting more into, like I said, involved with the black certified larva.
Awesome. And any other, short-term plans aside from just ramping up and getting ready for the hemp stuff and everything else you got going?
Not really. Just like I said, we're waiting to see. We got a couple weeks, and so hopefully we get a good present from the state with a medical marijuana license, which is very interesting. Uh, and so that's just sitting back and waiting. But like I said, I have more interest in hemp than I do that, and so we'll see what we do with the license, if they're transferable or not. And like I said, more interested in getting the hemp because they have more uses and more benefits that I see than actual cannabis on the cannabis side. And so, uh, yeah, we're just sitting back waiting to see, man. And, hopefully I'll have a good Christmas this year.
Is that when they're going to let you know, or did they say when they're going to release them?
Yeah, the 19th of December, I think, is one date. The other date is 19th of December for cultivation, 26th of December for manufacturing, and I think like January 16th or some, I believe, for dispensary.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Now, which ones did you go after?
I went after all three of them.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, the full vertical is definitely the way to go if you can get it.
Yeah, it's definitely a way to go. Um, I think it's really one of the only ways it should go is trying to go fully vertical. But yeah, it's gonna be real interesting to see how it's set up.
I definitely wish you luck on that one, man. It's such an uphill battle and can be such a challenge. I know Marty and I have both have spent plenty of time spinning wheels in mud with licensing. So
Right. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Every state is different, and so we shall see.
awesome. So I see you do tours and all kinds of different classes and things. Tell us more about some of the different things you do there at the farm on that level.
Yeah, we do tours, workshops, and so we teach people how to build, small high tunnels. So the average family spends about $5,000 a year on food, and so if you can build a high tunnel for like $500, you can decrease that food amount by, you can still grow food even in the wintertime. Even when snow's on the ground, you can still grow food. And so that's a lot of things that people think that the season ends in the wintertime. We can actually still grow different leafy greens like your lettuces, your collards and things of that nature over the winter time. And so we just show people how to build these small high tunnels that don't have to be heated over the winter time, and just teach aquaponic classes, intro how to build small IBC tote systems, uh, composting, uh, those type of classes that we have at the Nile Aquaponics.
Very cool. Is there any classes you're hoping to get into in the future?
Yeah. Well, we did have a couple classes where we teach people how to grow cannabis. Cannabis 101. Identifying how to grow. Like I said, it's new in Missouri, and so a lot of people are interested on how to grow their own stuff or their own cannabis, and so we've done some classes and did a one-on-one classes. We have a grower here out of Colorado, been out there for like the last 4 or 5 years. And so he conducts those classes and getting people started there. So just trying to identify what people want and trying to address those needs and issues that people have.
That's awesome. Is there any questions any of the other panelists have for Dre? He does a lot of work. I know Roger follows you a little bit as well.
I just wanted to give him a
Mic
shout out. I see him doing a lot of work with the youth and trying to mentor some of these young boys, and I really appreciate that. So just wanted to give you a shout out for that as well. It doesn't just stop at educating on the farm, and I appreciate it. Like I think you just recently I saw you post about exposing some kids to like photography careers and different stuff like that. So just big ups for that.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. I always tell my story. People always ask like, "What's my background? How did I get into it?" My great grandmother was a sharecropper in Jackson, Mississippi, and so she left Jackson at the time when a lot of racial climate was, and so she left Jackson to go to St. Louis, from St. Louis to L.A. And that Nile Valley in 2015. We were talking about her gardening and growing food and things like that. And 2015 was the first year that she didn't grow anything because of the drought crisis in California. And so she'd been growing food for 90 years, and that was the first time in 90 years she didn't grow anything. And so, that year she passed away at age 97. She was still driving, going to casino, doing all the fun things she wanted to do. But that's when everything came to full circle. Because if something was to happen in California, you would see it come out to Kansas City and every other state. And so that's when I've really seen the impact of being able to grow your own food. And one of her neighbors got up at her funeral and said that we called her Farmer Brown because what she didn't eat, she gave to people in the community. And so when people always ask what my background is, I'm just doing the same thing she was just doing on a larger level. It's just teaching people, how to grow food and giving them the food away to people in the community. So that's where, I'm just continue to keep that legacy going on growing food and giving it to people around who needs it.
That's
Awesome.
awesome, man. I
That's
love it.
really cool. Go ahead, Marty.
Oh, I was just saying that it's awesome. I love it. The whole idea of it. And we're friends on Facebook, so I see a lot of his posts and stuff. So it's very cool. Always inspired, put a smile on my face. So I love that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, do you want to touch on your youth outreach stuff? I know, especially with the we mentioned a little bit earlier, but you really do work hard to make sure these kids get a lot of exposure to things that they definitely don't normally do in the inner city, and definitely big ups for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, growing up, half of my people I grew up with is either, most of them are dead, so, trying to show them opportunity I didn't have, growing up, my best friend, uh, my stepbrother was killed. And so when you see some things like that happens, you try to expose them to as much as possible, but they don't have to go down the same route that, some of the other people that I grew up around went in. And so just trying to provide an opportunity, man, and just, show them a different space, even with the cannabis, where it's like now this is an industry that you can get into. I mean, even though there's a lot of barriers, just trying to figure out how, as African Americans, if we can get inside of this system that we've been locked out of. And so with me seeing an opportunity with hemp, it's one of those transitions where you can grow the hemp and get into, hemp and get that experience. So if you want to venture out into cannabis, hemp is a less, restrictive area to get in where you just pay $750 for a license and you can actually just grow it, in your front yard if you just, the way Missouri is set, as opposed to paying a non-refundable fee and $10,000 and having to have $300,000 in the bank to show. And so these are some things that people with low incomes or just entry level want to get into something. They can learn and bump their head on this hemp and then move on to getting into some more things as far as the cannabis is concerned, if that's the direction they want to get into.
Very cool. Let's if anybody has any questions in chat, let me know. I'm happy to ask Dre any of your questions you have for any of his programs. Do you have any questions about aquaponics? We have a panel of experts here. We got Roger from True Aquaponics, you got Marty and myself. If you have any questions on aquaponics, we're happy to answer that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following both you guys. I mean, I see the True Aquaponics post a lot in different groups, and I see Marty doing, a lot of comments on, the aquaponics and or the cannabis grows and watching his grow that he got there. And so yeah, I've been seeing you guys for last 4 or 5 years, possibly, online. And so, sometimes it's one of those things we just see so much. And you can put, a face and talk to somebody that you've been following and watching over the years. So, kudos to you guys for putting that information out there and being that resource because I know I've probably at least, seen some things you've done and try to implement it over in my direction. So, kudos to you guys as well for putting that information and being a resource for everybody else who's getting out there and trying to learn.
Yeah, we got frustrated. Marty and I both got frustrated by the lack of like really high quality aquaponic information out there and just grow information in general. So we try to just bring awesome people on like yourself that have done farms and educate people firsthand knowledge because that's the best, right? So
Yeah, I mean, that's the way you're gonna really learn. I mean, get out there and do it and mess up and figure it out, the hard way. You got to pay for school one way, and so sometimes a mistake is the way you pay for it.
For sure. Like that.
absolutely. Is there any good learning mistakes you made along the way?
Yeah, just overfeeding my fish, not having the right oxygen inside of the tank. And so when you see the fish going sideways on top of your tank, you know not to feed them again because they're still going to eat. So, yeah, you learn that the hard way. And so that's probably my biggest fish kill that I had, which is I just didn't know, because I didn't encounter that problem with them leaning on the side. and not knowing that they develop, I forgot what it's called, but when they get that big gut and they just overeat, there's not enough oxygen in the water. So that's probably my biggest learning lesson that I had. Just, seeing all my fish sitting on the top of the damn tank and couldn't even see the damn water inside of there because just not having the right ratio of oxygen inside of that tank.
At least they were still alive.
Yeah, the second go around it was the first go around and then go over so smooth.
It happens. It happens.
Yes, it
Actually,
I
does.
just
think
setting up this new system, I have one fish, just one. I don't know what it is about this one fish, but it just will eat itself. Like it tries to eat itself to death on a regular basis. Like all the other fish are fine, but this one fish will just like eat itself sideways like once a month. It's just, I don't know what it is. He can't control himself, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy how that thing works, but I mean that's one thing you learn is watching, observing your fish, and know how your system works. Like I said, you can read as many books as you want until you actually do it, you won't figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like until you get that hands-on experience, there'll be little pieces you miss. Because and coming from someone who's tried to teach people how to do stuff and create content about how to do it, I can see why that happens too. Because it's really hard to think about every single little thing that someone might run into along the way, and when you do it yourself, eventually you run into that stuff. And so I think that's and we talk about that a lot too. Like you can learn a lot of stuff online, you can watch a lot of videos, you can read a lot of books, but you're never gonna really like complete the circle until you do some hands-on stuff. And it just really helps bring it all together. So not that you can't get information and ideas and inspiration and all those different things from watching videos, it never replaces like putting some of that stuff in the action and learning from some of your own mistakes, and really kind of fills in all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean exactly. And so I've had a chance to view a lot of different systems, and all over from say Guangzhou to where the hell I've been. I mean, all over the states, Blue Island system, California. Yeah, and just to see all the different things that's out there and all it's just a wide variety of different things. See the Nelson and Paid overpriced systems. And so
No, really?
yeah, so when you see those and you seeing they sell them from greenhouse manufacturers and like this stuff is crazy. There's not enough education out there. And so I think it's a hole in the market as far as education, as far as aquaponics that can be utilized and be put out there a little bit more than what's out there now.
Absolutely. Any other questions anybody else has for Dre?
I don't have a question, but just comment, Mr. Taylor. Your first comment or post in Aquaponics was July of 2015. I actually went and looked it up just to see because I was very curious. So you've been with us for a long, long time. We'd love to see you post more often in there. We think you're doing great things and helping people become greater people. So it's to us, that's very, very important.
Yeah, it has been a while since I posted in and I think about it. I used to post in there, I think, a lot in all those different groups, but just just hands are full. I mean, I'm all over the place. Got the aquaponics I got going. I got a fruit orchard. I got a co-op with that. I got my mentor, and now I'm getting into the hemp and cannabis space. So, I would love to probably do more YouTube things, and I should have been doing it from the jump, but I just haven't, found the time to get into doing, a lot of videos that I should have been doing a long time ago. And so, hopefully with this hemp and cannabis thing, I might try to do more videos and post a lot more things that I'm doing, just to, show, different aspects of, the trials and tribulations of, this agricultural piece.
That's really, really cool. Well, I don't know, does anyone have any other questions? All right. Well, I really appreciate your time coming on the show and telling everybody about what you do over there at Nile Valley and all the wonderful things you're doing and how people can kind of think about some more ways about how to, do different types of outreach with their aquaponics setup. And it's always good to have a nice aquaponics farmer. Does a lot of vegetables too. We get a lot of cannabis focused stuff, and it's always good to have some veggie focused stuff as well now and then. So really appreciate you coming on, and I really wish you good luck with your license. Hopefully we can bring it back on in a month or two, and you can tell us about how excited it is that you have a license. Or maybe could bring it back on in the spring when you got it up and running.
Yeah, I'll be glad to be on and talk about it and bring our facility. And so we're actually about to start doing some site planning now for the hemp, in the next month or so. So we'll be putting up some light up greenhouses, do the hemp inside of there. And so trying to figure out if I'm gonna do it the traditional way or do a root zone. And so that's where I'm battling right now is, which way I want to go with it. So that's what I'll come decide in the next month or two, which direction I want to go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if you need help, I'm sure you can reach out to me or Marty, and we'll get you straightened out. And if you need nutrients, reach out to Roger.
That's work. I know where to find you guys.
If there's anything else we
Thanks.
can help you with, you need to spread the word or anything, feel free to use our group for that. We're happy to have you post with us.
That'll work. Thanks for having me. I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come on and tell everybody about what you're doing.
Thanks. I'll definitely be in contact with you guys. Enjoy the holidays, and I'll see you on the other side of the new year, hopefully.
Sounds good, man. Happy holidays.
Appreciate
it.
How do people find you? What's your website and if they want to look you up and get more information?
Nile Valley Aquaponics on Facebook and NileValleyAquaponics.com. I believe we post. I think we have a Facebook feed on our website. I believe. But yeah, we usually try to post something every day on Nile Valley Aquaponics site, regarding least food or some kind of food production. If it's not aquaponics, we have our goats on there or something. So we try to stay active with at least our Facebook with Nile Valley Aquaponics. But yeah, you can find me there or Dre Taylor Facebook. So either one, you can find me. I'm not hard to find.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks again.
Thank you guys. You guys have a good one.
You too. Cheers.
All right.
How's it going, Marty and Roger?
Oh, it's going pretty good. I just got back from taking my dad to the one of his doctor's appointments for his Parkinson's. So I was a little late, missed a little bit of it, but it's all good. I've followed Dre for a while, so I think just like Roger said, he's been in the group for a long time. He's been one of the ones that's kind of been out and about for a little while, so it's kind of cool to get to talk to him for a minute. We've been friends on Facebook for a while and commented on each other's posts and stuff, but I don't think I've ever talked to him I guess sort of face to face, webcam to webcam, however you want to, but really like a lot of the work that he's done for a long time. So other than that, not too much going on other than what we talked about on Tuesday, just sort of doing more maintenance stuff, getting the veg room will be probably functional by the end of the weekend. At least have 2 of my systems plugged into there. I'm going to pick up a cut of Purple Hindu Kush, aka Jaeger, that a local breeder sort of restarted from a different pheno. So I don't know where he got seeds or how that happened, but anyway, gonna pick that up and add it to the mom collection. So that'll be going to quarantine. I've got a little greenhouse now. Well, I've always had it, but here at the new place, I've got a little greenhouse set up for a quarantine area. So they'll go into there. and mostly just setting up cloning stuff and getting that off the ground so I can get all my own cloning squared away and get all these moms sorted out. And yeah, the stuff to build the scrog net is ordered. It should be here, you know, hopefully tomorrow. If not, then it might have to wait till next week, depending on who the shipper is. But that's kind of the same old stuff I've been working on. But it's going good. Everything's growing really well. Like all the like the tomatoes are really going crazy. They've probably like tripled in height since I put them in, and already got flowers. So hopefully we'll start growing some actual tomatoes soon. They need support. That's another reason I got to get the net up, is they need support too. So that'll be the priority at this point. Oh, I had one fish. I had a jumper. Got lucky because it jumped out of the top and ended up landing in the sump tank. So I don't know how it managed to do that, but lucked out. If it jumped the other way, it'd just be dead. So probably have to get the cover on relatively soon. So those are kind of my sooner rather than later projects. I got to get the veg room system set up, so I've got room to move plants in there, and then I'll have room in the flower room to kind of work around and build the scrog net. So just kind of sliding things around, get them all done.
Oh yeah. I got a question from chat. Hey guys, I had a question about nitrogen nutrients. What's the best method to lower nitrogen in an aquaponics system when it's time to flower? The easiest way is just stop feeding your fish so much. You know, cut the feed rate to half or a third is what it was before, and that's the easiest way. If you alternatively, you can feed acetobacters. You could do vodka dosing for denitrification, which is another way that you could do it as well. Or you could bring on additional plants for what's it called? Companion plants that would absorb it.
Yeah, I mean, I usually grow extra plants, you know. Well, I guess technically first I cut back on feed, and then I generally also like to have other plants in there already, you know. So like I'll have a lot of leafy greens in there that will, a lot of times they're just going to slow their growth when the nitrogen slows down. But I feed half as much during flower as I do during veg. And I usually start that about a week before I get ready to flip into flower. So, and you can even cut it back also if you want to do half as much on your feed. You could do half as much, half as often. If you really needed to, you could step it down even less. So feeding less is the easiest, in my opinion. And then growing greens that you can eat, you know, just seems like a relatively easy way to deal with it. If you need to start something that'll start taking up nitrogen right away, I recommend like getting green onions that already have roots, like from the store, and you can just plug those in, you know, chop them and eat them, and then just plug the roots into your system, and they'll start regenerating and taking up nutrients relatively quickly. And they're usually clean, and you know, you don't have to worry about like transplanting them from soil or something. So that's always a pretty good way to go if you need something to start taking up stuff right away, and you don't have like anything that you know, like seed, like even microgreen seeds aren't going to start taking up nutrients for a little while. So sometimes it can be difficult to bring down nitrogen in the system with companion plants because they kind of already need to be established in order to be really effective. So I keep them in there at all times, and just generally they just grow on the excess nitrogen in the system, and they'll, you know, usually just speed up or slow down their growth depending on how much excess there is, especially if you have large cannabis plants already that are taking up nutrients. They're gonna feed, and the rest of your plants are sort of gonna, you know, grow on whatever's left over. So I don't know who asked that question. Let me see. Brandon, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I think that was. Yeah, it can be tough to find some information online. Salary is also works. It's a little stockier, so you might need to add some more phosphorus, and probably some calcium. But usually, almost all your amendments and different things have calcium. So cutting back your feed is the easiest. Depending on your type of fish, you can probably go for a considerable amount of cut in order to lower your nitrogen, especially if you have like goldfish or koi. I don't know about tilapia or other types of fish. How do they do with cutting their feed back, Steve? Is there any issues with drastically cutting fish feed on other types of fish? I know koi and goldfish don't really care.
No, I mean, I would be careful if you're doing like tropical fish. If you're doing a large tropical fish filtration system or something like that, just because they don't have the same biomass to store enough energy to really, hold it and be good with that. So, I would say smaller fish, definitely be careful with that, but larger fish and more older, more adult fish wouldn't have as much of an issue as younger fish or smaller fish. That'd kind of be the bigger factor.
So just kind of jump in, what we've been working on is the new service that we're offering. I have spent an enormous amount of time getting it put together with Steve's help, of course. We are generating lots and lots of interest, lots of people coming on board, wanting to get their water tested for these larger systems and get their minerals shipped to them monthly or bi-monthly, or well, bi-weekly rather. That way they can balance their system out. And we're not only excited about that, but also at some point we're going to add on IPM, which is just basically pest management. And at some point I'm being pushed very hard. I'm not going to point at the guy that is pushing me, but to carry fish food also. That way you get your feed, your minerals, and your pest management all in one package. But that's out there ways. We need to get our system worked out as far as handling the water testing and providing minerals on a biweekly or monthly basis to you folks. But it's promising. It's really looking up and performing well so far. So we look forward to the future with that.
Yeah, we've had a huge interest. We keep getting a whole bunch of new people every couple of days, and it's been a lot of fun to see how much interest has been in us. It's been really cool. So, really stoked on that. And then we have it's based on the size of your system, the crops, and any other factors, temperature, pH, a couple of other variables that are real important, and then. We test your water and send you the nutrients you need to fix everything without having to deal with all the headache and rigmarole and all the bad information that's out there on nutrients. So again, makes it real simple for you. Let us do all the hard work and let you just focus on the plants. And it really is a great little service. What else is new with you? Any other interesting people that have reached out to you in the last short while, maybe interesting stories or interesting problems? I know you're, it's getting colder, with December coming up. If people don't have them already, make sure you get your heaters. Or if you're looking for a great, Christmas gift, I know Roger has some really unique heaters as well that are pretty hard to find an equivalent to.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of our heaters. They don't tend to break down like the little glass heaters that you get for a couple dollars off Amazon. They do wear out in time, but the parts that wear out are cheap to replace for the consumer. So as they stop working, which they will. I mean, heating elements do not last forever. Anybody tells you they do is lying to you. But when they do wear out, we keep them in stock so we can reship immediately. And it's literally you unplug the old one and plug in the new one, and keep right on going, keeping your fish tank warm, or actually your entire aquaponic system warm up to a certain size. But yeah, we love those heaters. And as far as anything else new going on, that this new service is it, man. We are so excited and stoked about it. We're seeing changes in people's systems already, just from the first month and a half. So we just can't wait to see what happens in the next couple of months.
Sorry, didn't realize I was still muted. Absolutely, yeah. It's been a lot of fun working together with Roger on this and getting it going, and we're stoked on that. I know a friend of the show, Jesse's coming to working hard to get merch going for the show. I know she has some amazing cannabis tilapia smoking a joint socks that I am very stoked and looking forward to wearing.
Can't go
Also
wrong
some
with those.
hoodies. Right, some hoodies, some hats, some shirts.
Tilapia smoking a joint with a Santa Claus hat on, right?
Yep. Backpacks, all aquaponic cannabis stuff, and you know, the proceeds of that are just going to go to help host the show. You know, I spend quite a bit of money on hosting the show, on you know, hosting costs and web costs and different subscriptions to make all the different things run with the audio and stuff. And we're going to work on starting next year. We're going to do a recorded show that's going to be a little bit higher quality and a little bit more professional, and then we'll have a one weekly live show and move into that for next year's formats. This past year we moved to 2 shows a week. I think it worked out really well. We weren't able to always meet it every single time, but I know Marty and I sure did our damnedest to make it happen. We really appreciate everybody putting in all the extra effort, and yeah. So I know Roger needs to get going. Did you want to tell you how everybody to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Check us out at trueaquaponics.com/store. Make sure you get that /store in there. It won't work. Or you can catch us on Facebook, True Aquaponics. Just search us on Facebook or look for Roger Loper on Facebook. You'll find me, and let me know that you're an aquaponics aficionado, and we'll get connected.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks a lot. So we got a thing in chat here. A guy goes, once almost electrocuted myself, felt the water, reached in and felt the glass heater had broke. Was shocked to see the latch attached to it. Scared myself half to death. Only use ceramic heaters now. Yes. One quick word of wisdom here. If you ever think there is loose electrical in your aquaponic system, you definitely want to use the back of your hand to check the system. You know, if you can check it in a different way, then great, but use the back of your hand to check it, because on the off chance there's a high electrical current in there, it will cause your arm to pull back because your biceps hard, you know, stronger than the back of your muscle in the front stronger than the back because you use it more. And you will pull your arm out of the water. Whereas if your arm is down, you'll pull your arm into the water, further electrocuting yourself. But you can actually use the back of your hand to jerk your arm out of the water should there be a high current in there, and actually save your life if it's a high current. Especially with aquaponic systems, it's something that we don't really talk about, but I'm glad that somebody mentioned it in chat.
Yeah, just to add to that, if you're using any heater, mine included, if it's plugged in, do not touch the water, period. That's the safest thing to do. If you need to check something and you're going to touch that water, unplug your heater, no matter who the manufacturer is, because who knows what may go wrong. You stick your hand in there, even when you do it with the back of your hand, like Steve's saying, which is the safest way to do it. You know, anything can still happen. When you're jerking your arm back out, you may grab a pipe with your other arm and pull it loose and have water coming out on you and still electrocute yourself. Unplug those things before you check, guys. And we include that information with all of our heaters. Never touch your water while they're plugged in. It's not worth it. Not worth the risk. All right. I got to get, you guys have a great night. I will see you next time.
See you later, Roger.
Also, never put ballasts on the floor. I see this a lot. People in grow rooms will put ballasts on the floor as well. And You know, that's a great way to break dance if you get a water leak. You can just be
Yeah,
zapping
you know,
across-
just
zapping across from-
I like to keep all electrical cables, regardless, like dehumidifier, your, you know, the power cable for your pump. You know, if you have external fans, you know, anything that requires power, I just like to keep all that stuff up off the floor. Just seems like, because if any water, I mean, you have so much water in your room, it just seems like if any of it started leaking for any reason, you would not want to be, you know, electrocuting yourself trying to get in there and turn it off, or find out what the leak is, or anything. So I have all of my, like, all my plugins are all up off the ground, or stapled or nailed to the wall. Just doesn't seem like, it's not a risk I'm willing to take personally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was gonna say something else and I lost my train of thought. Shit. Oh, thanks again, everybody else as well. You know, we hit 100,000 views just in the last, you know, 11 months on SoundCloud alone. We're approaching 500,000 views across all platforms for the year for the podcast. So that's, I mean, I certainly never would have thought we would have been approaching 500,000 views in a single year across all platforms. Like, that's incredible. So thank you,
Yeah, it's
everybody,
pretty
for
crazy.
all the support. Thanks for all the support for all the episodes, and yeah.
I remember when we were excited when we had like 10 live viewers. We were like,
Right?
whoa, 10
Yeah,
people at
20
the same
viewers.
time are watching. I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
We got 100 views for that episode.
Yeah. I think, who was the first one we had a lot of views on? What was it? I think it was maybe Scotty, or I know that Jeff Lowenfels was a really popular one,
Definitely on for a lot of
because it
bunch.
sort of
Frenchie,
came out right when
Frenchie, I
Facebook
think, had
hit.
like, memory serves me, I think Frenchie still has our record.
Oh yeah, Frenchie. He was a little bit later though.
Yeah, but I think he has the record for most simultaneous memory serves me.
Very cool. It's a great episode.
Bubble Man had quite a few as well, so that was fun.
Sub Cool.
I've just been getting.
That was another popular
one. Heavy Days had a lot as well. So, shout out to Heavy Days.
for sure.
Was it the podcast? That's
The
it,
podcast, yeah.
And I'm trying to think what else. I've just been getting ready for Zimbabwe. Getting ready to go out to the Hive event, and then BizCon, and then off to hopefully Emerald Cup. I might have to leave a day or two early. We'll see. I'm trying really hard to make it to Emerald. I might have to skip out a little early, unfortunately. So, oh man.
So these are that tomato plant. So this was like, you see how tall it is there. It was like maybe a week ago, something like that. Now that's how tall it is now.
Nice. Got the flowers rocking.
Yep.
Are you giving it any extra potassium to keep that going?
Oh yeah, I got a mix of, you know, basically the same thing that I mix up for flour, which is, you know, usually has like langbonite and some rock phosphate, and then the worm castings. This time are mostly fermented apple leftovers were fed to the worms, and made castings for that one. So
Right.
good stuff.
All right. Well, yeah. So I will. I guess we'll wrap up the show a little early. I know I'm pretty hungry. I've been working all day and then kind of jumped right into the show. So, I will. How do people find you there, Marty?
Oh, so you can find me just you probably saw pop up on the screen was Aquaponic Cannabis Growers Group on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube at AP Meds. You can find me on Instagram at AP Meds. You can find me on Patreon at AP Meds. And yeah, just working on a little bit every day.
Awesome. And you can find me at Ponics, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, all the different places. I will also be at the Hive event, the BizCon, and hopefully at Emerald Cup. Emerald Cup, I might end up having to cut out. I might have to leave a little early. Some of our timelines got moved up a little bit, and sometimes you got to go make money, unfortunately. So we'll see. But we'll see how things go. And just looking forward to seeing a whole bunch of people I haven't seen in a long time. It's always nice to go out to these events at the end of the year and see all the homies and all the supporters and all the amazing people that help make our industry awesome and help keep us sane. Especially excited to see Josh and Kelly. So super stoked on that. I don't think I've ever seen them and not felt revitalized and not had a nice good reset button from the industry burnout that happens every year. So super stoked to see them for that, and hope to make it to the TPs. If not, I send my love out there. And we will see you guys, I guess, in 2 weeks or so. We will not have a show next week. I will be entirely too busy between all the events next week going on to host any shows. The week after that, as soon as I'm done traveling and all the other craziness, we'll get back to a schedule. We might take 2 weeks off. In fact, that's probably what we should do, is just take 2 weeks off. And then we'll come back on the week of Christmas, and we'll be back, and we'll be live from Zimbabwe. So that'll be great. And then starting on the 1st, I think we'll switch over to the new schedule. All right, so we'll see you guys again. Again, if you are watching this and you're wondering where the hell the show is, I'll try to post a quick thing on Tuesday and Thursday. Hey, no show this week from the West Coast.
Hey, Steve.
And yep.
You did have one last question from Chad if you wanted to answer real quick.
Absolutely.
Brandon says, continuous flow versus flood and drain. What method do you guys recommend?
Sure. So continuous flood tends to have some issues with, especially when you come into late flower, when the plants start to, shut down portions of the root system and flower system that can get fed on by some of the microbes and really cause some issues. And just gives you less control. You also tend to build up fish waste because of that constant flood. You don't kind of have that flushing mechanism that happens with the flood and drain. So you end up with build up a lot faster and in more pockets in the media beds in general, and more channeling, which I find is more of an issue. And then also with the flood and drain, you get that diaphragm action like we talk about all the time with the dual root zone pots, where that water going up and down is creating gas exchange in that soil zone, or just in that root zone in general, just creating much increased gas exchange and increased plant growth, as well as helps make the microbes a little bit happier by having a little more oxygen. So I guess that's really the biggest advantage. So if you have the option, you always go with flood and drain over continuous flood.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and I feel like I've seen that firsthand as well, just in my own grows that I've done. And I've done everything from, constant flood, or what do they call it, where it's in the in the PVC pipe itself that's just running through NFT. So I've done NFT, and pretty much anything that doesn't allow for that change in oxygen, I feel like is the major disadvantage to anything besides flood and drain. And really, it doesn't matter how they flood and how they drain. We've talked about this extensively. Like, you can use a bell siphon, you can use a timer, you can use, doesn't really matter as long as the water level comes up and the water level goes back down. That's really all you need. There's not, there's no magic to it. Just the water level itself rising up pushes the air out of all of those little spaces in between. And then when the water level comes back down, the air gets pulled back in by the water level dropping out, giving it fresh air, and the water fills back up and pushes all of that stale air out. And then you get that kind of exchange on a regular basis. It's going to be beneficial. The only thing I will say about timers is that if you use timers, it generally ends up requiring more maintenance, and you have to change more often because you'll start developing solids in your media beds, or your flow will change a little bit, and you can run into challenges to where if you're timing it really tight, like let's say you as soon as it's empty, you wanted to start filling again, just like we have on with bell siphons or U siphons or whatever, external siphons or loop siphons or whatever you want to call them, is that as soon as they empty out, they start filling up again. And so when you're doing that on a timer, sometimes the amount of, well, not sometimes, every time, the amount of time that it takes for your system to drain completely out of water will take longer eventually once you start taking up media bed space with roots. So there'll be variations in it. So running a timer, you'll just have to check on it and make sure that your beds are draining completely out. Because if your beds are only half empty, you don't want to start filling it up again, or else you're going to end up with half of your bed that never empties out. And so you'll be more in a continuous flow type for half of your beds. So just be aware that each one of those different types of things comes with its own issues. So, but all of that being said, it's definitely worth it as much as possible. And somebody just said worms in your media beds. Absolutely, you should have as many worms as you can fit in your media beds. Red wigglers, you can't really overpopulate them. If you start to overpopulate them, they will start eating themselves. So it's really, you can't have too many of them. Absolutely. And put them in your dual root zone layers also, and they will just continue to populate out from there as well. So
blackworms as well to help eliminate that sludge layer.
Yeah,
really makes a big difference.
Yep.
And
so
those in labs. Yeah, worms and labs.
And
So
back to the original question, flood and drain over continuous flow, hands down. And for the most part, for air exchange, it reduces the amount of air that you need in your overall system as well, because then your plants aren't absorbing all of the dissolved oxygen out of your system. They're getting access to oxygen from outside the system as well. So it really reduces the amount of air that you need in your overall system. So there's just a lot of different benefits to it, and that's mostly to do with gas exchange. Probably less likely getting root rot and some other different things as well. Your media beds are going to be less likely to go anaerobic in different areas because they're also getting constantly exchanged with air as well.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And same thing with over DWC as well. If you can do flood and drain over DWC, again, because of that flood and drain action, that gas exchange, that diaphragm action, you're going to get faster growth and better plant growth overall than with regular DWC, in which we've gone over numerous times, different farms examples and different things and comparisons. And
and it really doesn't matter what you're growing either. We're not just talking about cannabis. This is, lettuce, it'll have the same effect. Tomatoes have the same effect. It really doesn't, it's not like a cannabis specific thing if you're, but it doesn't matter what you're growing.
Absolutely. All right, well, I think we're gonna wrap up the show here, and we'll catch you guys again on the flip side here in 2 weeks. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you guys Christmas week. And thanks again for your continued support. And we'll have a couple of live videos in between now and then. We'll do some events from where we're at. I'm pretty sure one of the places I'm going, there's no video service or cell phone service, so we'll see. But otherwise, we'll catch you guys, and I'll have some video from BizCon, and then hopefully Emerald Cup. All right, cheers.
All right.